Agriculture as a source of employment and financial sustainability for the youths is our focus on this special edition of Bridges. Why agriculture? There are young farmers out there who Bridges crew interacted with to bring home the context of farming or agriculture and food security. And within this context, some of them spoke to us on the challenges, on the value chain, and of course, on the sustainability of ensuring that the food security chain is not broken, brought this to fore in the context of ensuring that youths themselves begin to till the soil. We are speaking within the context of the theme for this year's World Youth Day, as the United Nations themed it, Transforming Food Systems, Youth Innovation for Human and Planetary Health. Now, youths are on the farm. Some interacted with Bridges crew for this edition of this program this week. They spoke of their challenges. They also spoke of their hopes within the context of support from government in terms of finances and, of course, land acquisition. But beyond all that, the bridge that we hope to build is to engage more youths going to the farm in spite of your calling, your first calling. We have a lawyer who has turned farmer. We have all sorts of people, youths, who are happy and doing well being farmers. And so as we build a bridge for food security and food sustainability within the value chain, I do hope that you will take home and be part of one who would today want to be a farmer. I'm not sure if I want to be a farmer, but of course I will encourage farmers so that there will be food for all of us to eat. And that's where our lenses are on this edition of Bridges. Come along with us. We ensured that we spoke to the farmers individually in their respective fields for them to tell us what are their challenges, what are their hopes, and is it true that agriculture can be a source of employment and financial sustainability. Join us now on the field.
I started my farm in 2017, but prior to that time, I used to, travel out of the country, buy things, and bring them back to sell. That was after I graduated, I finished from NYSC. So, but there was a recession around 2015, and I found out that, traveling to buy things and bring into the country was not sustainable. People just felt that things were becoming so costly and the dollar rate was so high. So I had to look inwards and see, look around me and find what I could do. And, agriculture caught my eye.
You may ask, why is a lawyer involved in farming? And the answer is, agriculture is actually allowed for legal practitioners of all age and of all types.
And as we look up to the United Nations Day for the youth, the theme for this year has to do with youth in innovation, changing food systems, being sensitive to agriculture and how it impacts on human health and human life.
It's very important that we as young people and everybody participate. Without food sustainability, we can't have a nation. At this point in time across Nigeria and across the world, as we have seen pandemic, one thing remains very important, that everybody needs food to actually stay alive. So that means the essence of feeding, of food, when we talk about food, not in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality, remains a very vital and essential component of our existence. But we've seen that over the years, because of drought, which are natural causes or consequences of our actions and inaction, climate change and the rest, we've seen that the production at the rate at which we are producing food has been quite low, which if you are not very careful, by the year 2050, everybody might be converging for what to eat.
I'm sure you would know that with the recent surge in prices of food, it becomes very difficult for farmers to feed their animals. I'll give you an example. During the lockdown period in the year 2020, we did have serious shortage in feed because humans have not finished eating, talk more of the animals. But then we came up with a strategy. And what was the strategy? To feed the animals food that are in season. What do they say about Plateau State? A home of peace and tourism. We do have food, different varieties of fruits, from pawpaw to potatoes to beans to strawberries, and this we get from the farmers around us, and we get them for free. Why do we get them for free, you ask? This is where our girl child come in. We give them manure, and they sell manure to the farmers around us at a very cheap price, and more so you get them cheaper, or you get them for free if you're a farmer that is a woman. We give them to them for free. We give them to widows for free. And then we sell them to the men around, not being biased, at a very cheap rate. Why? Because this manure enriches the soil and it gives back to the community. Pig farming is not about pollution. Instead, it enriches the soil.
Nigeria is within the tropics, which makes us very stable when it comes to the ability to be able to plant crops, grow crops, and be able to get good harvest. So I think it's a clarion call to government, to private agencies, to private farmers, to those who are looking for areas to invest in, that at a time like this, we should begin to look inwards. We should begin to align ourselves with the agenda of the United Nations at a time like this, and begin to look at some of the challenges we are facing so that we could overcome them and be able to meet the challenges of the Zero Hunger Challenge. Of course, that is for 2030, where every child should not go to bed hungry.
Now, let's talk about food safety. We've seen that over time, even the food that we consume, how hygienic are they? As young people, we also have a role to ensuring that people use what we call safe and healthy measures in farm production or in agricultural produce value chain processes. Now, if you're looking at the value chain process, we need to move away from using harmful practices or products in actually either cultivating in processes or even in storage, because at the end of the day it comes back to the entire oil system.
Another challenge we face that is actually critical to us is the middlemen and logistic challenges. You'd agree with me that most Nigerian roads are quite critical, quite bad. So the cost of getting foodstuff to the market sometimes is very, very deterrent. I give a classic example of cabbage in Plateau State, Nigeria. In 1 year, I remember that the rains were very heavy. Cabbage did very well, but getting this cabbage to the market was so terrible that the farmer who had actually harvested cabbage into a truck got to the market and found out that middlemen had crashed the prices of cabbage such that the cost of transporting the cabbage from the farm to the market was way, way more than what she would have sold the cabbage for. And so what did she do? She abandoned the cabbage with the driver and ran away. The middlemen are the ones who control the market themselves. So they drastically crash prices, giving those of us who are farmers this bottleneck to deal with. Meanwhile, this same cabbage in a place like Lagos or Rivers State costs so very much. So the 80-20 rule applies. The person who adds the last 20% of value actually makes 80% of profit. This is a deterrent to farmers because they don't see any incentive. The cocoa farmer is not the one going home with the money, but it is the company that produces the chocolate. But I think that government should bring in modes of making sure that farmers go home with a healthy income to encourage them to continue production.
One of the greatest challenges that we have is the fact that we do not have access to loan facilities. I've been a pig farmer for over 4 years and I have not gotten one loan from whether the federal government or any other loan agencies around. Why? Because pig farming is not recognized in Nigeria.
Okay, so in the poultry sector right now, as I mentioned earlier, that we've been facing inflation over time. Last year, egg was selling for like 800, 900, 1,000. Right now, from the farm, we're getting eggs almost at 1,500 naira directly from the farm. This is gross, increase in almost 100% increase in the cost of purchase. And by the time it gets to the end users, and why is this? Because constantly the cost of feed keep going up. costs keep going up. The increase is really, really out of here. One thing that also affects us is multiple taxation. For example, you are actually required to pay levies because you are egg supplier, you supply, you pay local government, you pay the FCT, you do this. So insecurity it's a whole lot of challenge too, because you are not sure you're going to the farm, you are like, oh, skeptical, what is the safety concerns and the rest.
For example, on my farm, we sometimes suffer mortality rates of the piglets. And why do we suffer this mortality rate? Because we do not have farrowing crates, which are the crates in which the sow, which is the female pig, stays in to birth. And this helps in eliminating the female pig crushing her piglets at a very early stage. These farrowing crates do not come cheap. With the rising cost in metal, imagine me having to fund the cost of fabricating these crates on my own, either at home or bringing or importing it from abroad. These crates are mostly fabricated in Europe. And imagine the cost and the hassle of having to bring these crates in from abroad. That is a whole lot of fun involved for myself, and I am sure for other farmers all around us as well. We ask the government, we ask the agencies around to support women like us in business to be able to make our company go global. And this would be a very good facelift for the government here in Nigeria.
Let's look at security as another challenge. The security issue in Nigeria now has become quite sensitive that some of us who are farmers are not even willing to go to the farm. And I can give an example of myself as a beekeeper. I have a couple of hives scattered around Kaduna State because of its potential to produce very good honey, very good forage is available in Kaduna State. But this last year, or in the course of this year, we are all aware of the issues of kidnappings and the likes that have plagued the whole of that state. And so this year, I wasn't able to travel to harvest my honey. How do I survive in the midst of these challenges?
I know, in fact, it was just recently that one of the bridges that leads to my farm was reconstructed, and before then, I'm telling you, it takes me almost from the road, because when the road is good, it takes me from like 8 minutes from the main road into the farm. But before the road was reconstructed, it used to take us almost 30 to 40 minutes. So, I know that, like, if you have to spend that time, by the time you even get to the farm, you're already tired. So we have the problem of infrastructure. We have even the problem of, right now, people have the problem of security, whereby people are afraid to even, like my farm is in the village. Like, you really have to pass a lot of, how would I put it, farms to get to where I'm going. So maybe sometimes I'll just be thinking, I hope nobody's just going to come and attack me from anywhere and everything. So, but, these are the challenges.
We're females in this pig industry. And imagine people at large knowing that these are just women, a woman-dominated farm. Imagine the problem and then the security problem that this causes to us. We have to close from the farm very early because of insurgency all around us. We also need in structures such as CCTV cameras, we also need solar panels, and we also need inverters, because when these animals are born at a very tender age, in foreign countries, they do have heat-generated mats that are attached to the farrowing crates. But here we do not even have it, because number one, we cannot power our generator to be able to run and keep this animal warm. What do we result in so that we do not run at a loss? Results to charcoal, and which is also a hazard on the farm. But because we do not have this support, we have to do what we can to be able to make this business very viable. So we ask for the government to come in and help young farmers like I and other pig farmers around to be able to get loans, not applying for loans years over and over and nothing ever comes through. We have to work extra hard for a living. We ask for soft landing for pig farmers, such as I and other female pig farmers, and also my male counterparts as well in this business.
Thank you. We're still at the field, as it were, and my crew is out there, getting the views of these young farmers. But one issue that, kept cropping up as the conversation went on is asking that the role of the government and impacts of putting right policies in place has become an imperative to encourage more young farmers or more would-be farmers to be part of this food security chain. Let's listen to them.
There are a lot of issues that border around legislation that we hope that our country would be able to address. For instance, the issue of the importation of agrochemicals. There's a family of agrochemicals called neonicotinoids, which is harmful to both flora and fauna. In countries or in nations or in group of nations like the EU, neonicotinoids have been completely banned. In fact, in France was one of the countries that took the lead. Now, one of these agrochemicals by a company I shouldn't really mention is flooded across the Nigerian market, even distributed by government agricultural agencies, when it is known to be causing cancers and toxic issues. And so legislation on insecticides importation should be one of the things that would help us. We should be taught through the agricultural development programs, the ADPs, on best pest management controls as opposed to the use of agrochemicals in everything. There are herbicides, there are weedicides, there are insecticides. Where did we go wrong? You cannot enter into a cocoa farm that has been sprayed for about 7 to 21 days because of how toxic the agrochemicals are. Unfortunately, legislation also does not help. Nigeria does not have a residue monitoring plan, for instance, so we cannot even export our food to the European market because we don't have an RMP, a residue monitoring plan. We don't even have hazard critical control points. So we are calling upon our legislators to please help in the area of legislation.
We can say that our inputs, we need to ensure that we have the policy environment is actually enabling. How well are we even talking about even the production, having young people participate? As young people, we have a very great role to play. We're also looking at building an economy that is viable, that is sustainable. One thing, we need to move away from the oil production to agriculture. This is not by lip service or by just saying it theoretically. It's by actually getting more people to actually participate. I know that young people will say one of the key issues confronting them or hindering their participation is land access or land reform. Well, if the government can put in place sustainable land access and reforms in place, more young people will be able to access land use and they will be able to cultivate it and actually support the production of support food security and food safety.
Legislation is one of them as well. There should be proper legislation to make sure that the beekeeping industry itself is well regulated and protected. It's unfortunate that even till now, the Nigerian farming system does not have what is known to be called the residue monitoring plan. These are some pertinent issues that affect myself as a beekeeper. And in view of the United Nations Youth Day that comes up very soon, it is critical because we believe that in the next, by 2030, the population of the world would have increased by another 2 billion people. And we are being told too, at least from the Food and Agric Organization, that we are not necessarily looking at an increase in land used to cultivate crops. But what we are looking at is the proper maximization of the land that we have to be able to produce more. But the United Nations is telling us this year that even when there's an increase in production of food, it does not mean that it will just move, it will sail smooth like that. There are other factors, issues of security, for instance. There is war, there are conflicts all over the world. Issues of youth are not really put on the front burner. And we know that it is the youth that will champion the future of agriculture. Technology gap. All over the world now, you don't even need tractors going into farms to spray. There are drones that do that. But if you ask the average farmer in Nigeria, how many of you have a drone to be able to work on your farm? In fact, most of them don't even know what drones are.
One area that we could look into, as young people can look into, is value chain. How well are we actually improving that system? Now, for value chain, there's so many produce out there. Look, I want young people to look around in their environment and see what are those agricultural produce that are readily available. What value can they add to it? We cannot keep on importing things. We need to move away from an import-dependent economy to a locally enabling economy. That means that we need to be able to produce, process, and consume what we produce, and then we can also export. Now, one of the opportunities that lies for young people within agricultural sector is that we have this African free trade, continental free trade agreement that we've signed into. It's also opportunity because what we produce, we can actually export it to other countries. This is time for us to think innovatively, creatively, and think beyond our, think without a box, to ensuring that we are able to go exploit those opportunities that lies there. Okay, let me pick mango for an instant. Mango, as it looks like, you know that we now have people that are drying. So we have so many countries, we have so many states in Nigeria, communities that produces mangoes. Why don't you think, okay, how do I add value to this mango? Now, we're no longer in the season of mango, but are people having access to mango? No. So what value can we actually have? We can try to dry up the mango and still retain the content. Have you thought about this? I know you might say, okay, to do this, you need power. And that's why we also talked about government actually providing the enabling environment. For every system that you put in place, government should always think back. Government, we are calling on you to think back on the impact and the impact and consequences it's going to have on the agri sector.
Indeed, agriculture as a source of employment and financial sustainability in youths is achievable. Your friends out there have been able to demonstrate the fact that this is doable and actionable. But the emphasis now is on government to provide the enabling environment for these youths who want to come back to till the soil, are able to do that in an atmosphere where security is established, and of course support that is needed, financial support, and of course helping them to grow food, not just for sale, but indeed for themselves as well. Because health experts will say your food is what you are. The food you eat is what makes you. And since we need a healthy herd of Nigerians, particularly youths, to move development fast, we need to pay attention to this. We would continue with this conversation as we encourage more farmers, more young farmers to till the soil. And we will bring them to you. The success stories, of course, we'll continue to speak to that. But of course, we'll also speak to their challenges so that all these can be mitigated and we can have a healthy country where food is plenty, affordable, and healthy for all of us. We'll be back again same time next week on Bridges. Meanwhile, till the soil, grow more food so that we can have food security.